Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. That should brighten your day a little. Actually, a lot. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Hello listeners, and welcome to this third and final part in the mini-series titled Tales from the Jails. To find more content from John G. Sutton, you can find him on YouTube under the name Tales from the Jails, or follow the links in the episode description. To support me on Patreon, you can find me at patreon.com/The Cult Vault, where you can get early access to ad-free full-length episodes for only £1 a month. But for now, here is John G. Sutton.
Do you think that the prisons have changed in terms of how prison officers are allowed to handle, well, that's probably not even the right word these days. Restraint's probably not even a word that is used, but how you would manage an inmate that is attacking you? Do you think that if you were to throw someone against the wall now, you could face disciplinary action? Have we moved that far along?
Well, let's face it. I mean, if somebody's attacking me, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I can't. I either defend myself and overpower the man along with all the help that's required, or I get injured. And you get somebody like Charles Bronson who gets hold of you and decides that they're going to take you hostage. You don't want to be in a hostage situation, so you're faced with, you defend yourself. But I believe that these days they are very alert to the idea of prison officers being overly aggressive, and that they're trying to play it down. I mean, but they've got females in prisons now. Listen, it was difficult enough for me dealing with these people and rejecting the bribes and the coercion. How a 20-year-old girl fresh from college is going to deal with that? And they're not dealing with it. You see it throughout the country. Female prison officers on trial for smuggling mobile phones, drugs, tobacco, whatever else is in them. And the reason that they're doing that is that they're coerced, they're tricked, they're seduced. They're told, a beautiful woman, you shouldn't be in here. If I was on the outside, you'd be my wife. And they think that this is for real. It isn't for real. They're being manipulated. I'll tell you something. I was at the Scrubs, and I'd been there about a year. And I got a call one day, said, report to the office, so I went to the office. They said, we've got a man here, you can take him round for a couple of days. And he was a brandly newly recruited prison officer. He'd been trained, he'd come from the school, but he was just at the Scrubs. They stuck him with me for a couple of days. And I took him round and showed him around the place, and he was making notes. This guy, he was absolutely meticulous, everything he wanted to know. And I thought, he's just a little bit intense, and he told me he was a former warrant officer from the Royal Air Force, and he'd been responsible for putting on parades for the Queen. He'd met the Queen, he'd met Mountbatten, he'd met all the royal family, and he was the big noise in the RAF. And he'd been recruited to the prison service, and he thought he was a star, this man. He was going to sparkle and twinkle. And I said to him, be careful in here. I said, because these people are masters at manipulation. They'll tell you you're wonderful and how you are going to be the man that's going to change the prison system. And the next thing you know, they've got you by the bollocks. He says, you don't need to speak to me like that. He said, for 30 years, I've been in charge of hundreds of men. I thought, I can't tell this guy anything. Anyway, he was posted to D Wing. That was the lifers wing at the Scrubs. And I never thought no more about him until about 2 months later, and I saw somebody I knew from D Wing. I said, oh, how's he going on, this guy? So what do you know about him? I said, well, when he first came, I was the officer he was attached to. I just wondered how he'd settled in. He said, he don't work here anymore. They required him to resign. This they found him at the gate with tobacco and whiskey and smuggling it in. What they'd done is they'd got him and twisted his mind in the lifers wing, and they'd persuaded him to go placing bets at the local bookies. And as soon as he'd done that, he was smuggling in whiskey and smuggling in tobacco, and he was just their prisoner. And he had been a former senior warrant officer in the RAF. If it can happen to somebody as who's worldly wise as that, then sticking a 20-year-old who's doing the risk assessment on this.
It's kind of similar to when people say, "Oh, I don't think that intelligent people would ever join a cult," and I think all the research has suggested that actually you're more perhaps more susceptible to it if you have a certain IQ level. But as you've said here, anybody can be susceptible to that coercion, manipulation in the form of bribery or in the form of offering protection, or even with women working in the prison systems through either seduction or maybe even through threats of finding out where you live, or the names of family members or anything like that. It's really a scary thing, and I'm talking about it in terms of my perspective of 10 years ago, maybe, of going into Northwest prisons. You're talking about the 70s, and I think the laws have changed significantly since then.
Very likely. My daughter visits prisons now. She's a social worker. She visits prisons, but for young offenders.
Right. So she's doing the work. She's doing the work that you hoped to do when you started. Wow, that's kind of poetic, isn't it?
It is kind of poetic. She's enjoying the work, but I mean, it's obviously quite onerous. But she gets them homes and gets them jobs and gets them settled down, and I think she's got an 80-something% rate success, of people in her care being housed and homed and, working and motivated. And that's the main thing.
Yeah.
That's the way.
That's the key, isn't it? Breaking the cycle of reoffending. I think there's something, I was looking at statistics, this was a long time ago, around if an individual offends, is imprisoned, released, and then reoffends in a certain amount of time, there's a chance then that they will just continue that cycle ongoing, because at that point you've really diminished chances of either finishing education or finding employment or finding housing, and all of that stuff that comes with stopping people from stealing for money and whatever else.
But you see people that get into the cult of offending, because that is a cult as well. The gangs, they have initiation ceremonies. Used to have initiation ceremonies in the army. I resisted all that. But they used to, especially in special forces like the parachute regiment and the SAS. They are mad, by the way.
I'm just writing this down because the cult of offending sounds like a really interesting title for an episode. What would you say that looks like then?
Well, it looks like the cult of offending is your grandfather's been in strange ways when he was 25. Your father's been in strange ways when he was 25. You get to be 24, it's your turn. They do that. I mean,
So it's a privilege or an honor rather than something that's looked.
It's a rite of passage. A criminal rite of passage. And if you don't have the badges, if you've not been there, then you're not accepted. You're not in the cult. You're not one of us.
So say you're an individual that is following suit from previous family members, you arrive at one of these prisons. Are you treated differently because of the status that your family holds within the prison?
To a certain extent, yes, because people know who you are. People know who your families are. There's a family in Manchester called the Noonans, and all the Noonans have been in strange ways. Dominic Noonan was in strange ways, and he was saying, did an interview with him. He said, I was too tough for strange ways. They couldn't hold me. Except when they were interviewing him, he'd been down the block at strange ways in the empty cells, in the strip cells down there, stark bollock naked, eating bread and water virtually. So that's how tough Dominic Newman was. And I worked there for a long time. I never saw anybody win. I saw some big bastards lose. Big. There was a guy called George Wilkinson, who was one of the biggest men I've ever seen. He was probably about 6'6" and about 18 stone, a giant of a man.
Wow.
When I saw him, he was standing in a bowl of water, drinking copious amounts of fluid, copious amounts of water, stark naked. And I said to him, you're going to hurt yourself doing this. And all he would do was laugh, like that, bloody hell. He was mad. He didn't last.
The prison officers would be making the harder prisoners go through this. What is this, the initiation, or is this just mistreatment from staff to knock people down a peg or two?
Yeah, there was an initiation. Strange ways. If you went down the block and you thought you could be the tough guy, there were a couple of jailers there who would go into your cell and say, like, you've got 10 seconds, give us your best shot. Because after that, you're going to get the best hiding you've ever had in your life. So you've got 10 seconds, go for it. And I know I never saw anybody win. I saw a lot of people lose, including people who were like Paul Sykes. Paul Sykes was a heavyweight boxer who fought John L. Gardner for the heavyweight championship of Great Britain. He was in strange ways, down the block, on the floor, arse full of Largactyl.
John, you just have the most wild stories. I know that you have a whole YouTube channel that's dedicated to all of this, but you must just remember things all of the time. They're just wild stories. What are the most outrageous things that you saw prison officers do in terms of exploiting their positions that really led to you being part of this rebellion that took place in order to get change for prisoners?
It wasn't just change for prisoners, it was change for staff. All the conditions that pertained for the prisoners pertained for me, and I have to work there. I was starting work at 7 a.m. in the morning, and finishing duty at 9 o'clock at night. It took me an hour virtually to get in and an hour to get back. So we're not talking 14 hours a day. That's 16 hours a day away from home. And what family life is that? And
this was mandatory as well. Mandatory overtime, you said?
I went to see the PO. I was studying at Manchester University to try and get a degree in law at the same time as working. You can imagine doing that. Yeah, you've done it. Yeah. It made me ill, actually. And I'm not surprised. I went to see the POA, the Prison Officers Association, said, look, I need my time off to study. I don't want to work overtime. Oh, no, they said, we've agreed with the governor that this is compulsory overtime. So you see what's happening today. They're talking about 4-day weeks. 4-day weeks. I averaged 13 days a fortnight. That's what you worked. 13 days a fortnight. If you were lucky. Yeah. Some staff worked all the way through. They did like 14 days, 28 days a month.
It's a lot of it's not like sitting at, I know that it would actually be tough to do that for a long time as well, but it's a lot of walking around and keys, unlocking doors, and there's a lot of responsibility. And you were working in the medical wings as well, so there'd be a lot of, I guess, medication involved in your role as well.
That was, yeah, I became a hospital officer. But you asked me what really flipped me over into saying something had to be done. I was working down the block at Strange Ways, and this psychiatrist came round, and when he'd been round and seen the people, he came back into the wing office where I was sat with some of the other staff, and he said, that guy's absolutely bloody mad. He said, I'm referring him, he'll be in Broadmoor before the end of this week. And the staff were going up in a way. He said, what happened? He said, yeah, you've seen pink mice polka dot mice, blue striped mice. He said, he's definitely ready to go. I said, I'll have him transferred to Broadmoor. So when the psychiatrist had gone, they were pissing themselves laughing, the staff. I said, what's so funny about that? This poor bastard's round the bend, he's going away to Broadmoor. He said, we've been painting the mice. What they've been doing was catching the mice, and they had paints from the art class, and they were painting them different colours, polka dot mice and yellow mice, and putting them into his cell. And this poor bastard had been seeing real mice, but he thought he was mad, and so did the psychiatrist, and they took him away.
It's the stuff that like horror stories are made of, where the person gets sent to a place that's classed as like for the criminally insane or the most dangerous people, and then says, I don't need to be here, and everyone's like, that's what everybody says, don't worry, we'll take care of you. That's like the stuff of horror stories.
Horror stories, yeah. I went into the block one day and they were kicking this guy. I was a medical officer at the time, and they were kicking this guy, naked guy, on the floor. The staff were standing back, running up and booting him. Then the next one had come up, and I ran forward and got hold of this guy by the top of his hair and dragged him along the landing into an empty cell and shut the door. And I said to the staff, I'm now going for the senior medical officer. I said, now don't you go into that cell. And I know exactly what's happening here. So I went and got the senior medical officer, and I took the senior medical officer into the cell. I said, this man's been seriously injured. And there were lumps all over him of brown boot polish and all over his body. His teeth had been kicked out. One of his eyes was obviously seriously badly damaged. The senior medical officer examined him, and he said to me, Mr. Sutton, he said, why am I here? I said, you're here to make sure that this man's not been seriously injured. He said, there's nothing wrong with him. Absolutely. I said, I can't see anything at all. He said, don't waste my time again. And off he went. And the staff just gave me one of them. I thought, I'd better get out of here. It could be my turn next. The next day, the incident report book showed that during the hours of darkness, the inmate had been throwing himself at the wall and screaming, and that. So they were covering that up, you see. But what could you do? You couldn't report it. Well, I did report it. But all that happened was it backfired on me. But that's the regime, you see. They get you trapped into that. Once you take part in that, then you're in the system, aren't you? You're there. But resisting that is very difficult.
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you want to get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
At the time where you decide to try and get some better rights and regulations for prison officers, and you're shut down at every turn, where the other prisons that you attend, they have people on the doors taking names and everything. Is this all linked to how you began receiving? Is this how you started to get physically assaulted yourself?
I've been assaulted since I was at the Scrubs, but I gave lectures on this, and I used to go from prison to prison, and they'd hire a function room, and I'd stand up and explain why you cannot allow your managers to run your trade union, because it's very, very dangerous, because it effectively means that you've got no representation. And in the event that something does go wrong, then your managers are your trade union, and that's you down the river. You've had it. And I've seen it time and time again. Inmates attacking staff fighting back. Then they go and complain to the union. Nothing done. So one poor guy got slashed from his ear right onto his chin, a prison officer, right the way down. A big flap of skin came out. And he was back on duty within a month with a great big stitch. He said, "What are you doing here? Your union should be taking care." Oh, no, he said, "I can't afford the time off." What? What? Just brainwashed into actually following. So I said, we can't have the union run by the staff, by the senior staff. You've got to have our own union. So I set up a trade union. I was studying law at the time, and I had two friends who were solicitors, and they helped me. And I drafted up an application to the certification office, and we got a certificate of independence for the union. I was elected as the general secretary, and I went around. I went to Liverpool, to Walton Jail, to give a talk, and I've got it somewhere on record. I was on BBC Radio Merseyside, and I was saying to the staff, because what they did was, honestly, at Liverpool, the governor, the chief officers, the POA, they called a staff meeting, everybody in the prison. And the governor and the chief officers and the POA gave an address to the staff. They said, anybody that attends the meeting tonight that's been spoken to by Mr. Sutton, anybody, and we will expel them from the Prison Officers Association. And at Liverpool, the Prison Officers Association is a closed shop. So if you're not in the POA, you don't work here. So do not attend. And sure enough, when I got to the meeting, there was about 2 or 3 there. They said, the staff daren't do it. They dare not do it. Do you know, I was the only man ever to be expelled from the Prison Officers Association. They had a national general meeting to expel me. And they put my name forward, and it was a unanimous 100% vote out. It was like
this is more coercion, though, isn't it? Because if you're not stick with everybody else, yeah, absolutely. So the social proofing in these systems is so tight. It's almost impossible.
It did prove to be impossible, but it was like that scene from 1984 where they're all having that hate hour. Hate, Goldstein. I was Goldstein.
And at what point was it that you began receiving physical assaults in retaliation for you trying to change the system?
A number of times. I think basically shortly after I'd blown them up in the press and reported them for associating with the Ku Klux Klan, and the National Front were a danger. They used to wear little lapel badges, and it didn't say National Front. It was like a furled Union Jack, and that was a sign for the National Front. And of course, they were abusive to the inmates of colour, which was pointless to me. I mean, what for? It didn't seem to make any difference to me. I mean, prisoners are prisoners, human beings. Get on with it, get your time done, and get out, live your life properly. But that was when it started to happen, and it became quite dangerous. And it wasn't just inmates who attacked me, and a number of staff as well. One staff member tried to bloody strangle me. Hurt my throat. I was off work for about a week. Couldn't eat. Anyway, time passes.
That's so terrifying, though. You talked with Sean about how you struggled to get prison officer housing, how that the system really worked against you in terms of getting you the housing, and then the time you're attacked by the 3 people with the glasses, you're taken to court, you win that court case.
Yeah.
But then there's a further retaliation from that as well, where you end up with somebody comes to your door.
He came to my house. Yeah, came to where I lived again and attacked me there. And again, the police didn't do anything. In fact, I got summons for that, but it was a private summons. The guy who'd attacked me, his father was a Freemason. He was the chairman of the POA at Wormwood Scrubs. And they issued proceedings against me in the magistrates' court. And I had to retaliate by getting lawyers involved. You try and get, it was Victor Mishcon from the West End of London. They won't even talk to you unless you take them £1,000.
I mean, you're lucky, I guess, in some ways that you survived your entire career within the British prison systems.
At the end, they got me in the end. They did get me in the end.
How was it that you finally departed altogether?
I rather think that, they'd said, we've got to get this guy. And somebody came up behind me, a senior officer who was in the hospital service, grabbed me by the back of my tunic and started to try and pull me backwards down a set of stairs. And I wasn't being aggressive to him. In fact, in my right hand, I had a cup of coffee. I was going to my duty up in the ward upstairs. And I was halfway up and he grabbed hold of me. Now, if I'd let him pull me back, I'd have hurt myself. So I spun round and bashed him on the nose with my fist. And he fell down the stairs onto the floor, picked himself up and ran off and complained to the chief officer about me. And I was suspended from duty. And at that point, I went home and told my wife, and she said, "You're not going back there again." So I went to see my doctor, and I'd seen him numerous times before because I'd been assaulted. And he said, "You're not to go back." He said, "I'm putting you on the sick." And the Home Office sent me a letter referring me to a psychiatrist. And I went to see this psychiatrist, and he said, he listened to me for about an hour or so, a bit like this, really. And he said, "I have to tell you, Mr. Sutton," he said, "I think you're perfectly sane." He said, "But you're not to go back there again." He said, "Because they are mad." And that's how I left the prison service.
But also how you were able to keep your retirement, I believe.
Well, I mean, I had served nearly 11 years and I paid all my dues.
Yeah. I think if some of the people working in those prisons at that time had their way, though, you would have left with nothing.
Nothing, no, I wouldn't, but I didn't. The Home Office. Let's tell you this. Norman Brown was the governor. And Norman Brown was a hard-line military type governor, old school type. He would have been brilliant in the reign of Queen Victoria, but as it was in the 70s, he was slightly out of time. But he was a strict man, but really he was a gentleman, He was a former tank commander in the British Army. And in a way, I kind of understood where he came from. He believed when he gave a direct order, that was it. And he had his team of henchmen, like the Praetorian Guard that was surrounding him. Yeah. And I could see that he wouldn't make head nor tail of me because I was saying that the system was, not only was it corrupt, it was dangerous, it was dirty, it was disgusting, and it was out of its decade. It was beyond its time. So, but he did not sack me, Norman Brown. I mean, if I'd have been Norman Brown, I would have sacked me.
If you would have been above Norman Brown, though, would you have sacked Norman Brown for some of the things that he would get up to when he was in charge?
I'd have put him somewhere else. I wouldn't have put him in charge of prisoners because he wasn't suitable for that.
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you want to get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Yeah, fair enough. So after you left the prison systems officially, what was your next step? You mentioned working in journalism for a significant amount of time. Now you are working on your YouTube channel. You're a writer. You have published books. Just tell us all about what you've been up to.
It's a long story. I mean, it's not just as simple as that. I mean, we haven't got very long. And but I will tell you about it. But it involved many different things, including me getting a teaching certificate and teaching adults with learning difficulties. which I did for Lancs County Council for quite a long time. And from there, I had an idea to resurrect the career of a pop singer from the 1960s called PJ Proby. So I wrote some music and songs for PJ Proby and recorded him and released them. And I got him on TV and back on tour, and we're on TV together. And as I started to do that, I was approached by psychic mediums, kept coming to my door. And they said, we've seen you in the spirit world of sending a message. It's time for you to start work. And I, of course, had experienced psychic phenomena all my life. And these psychics were saying, it's time for you to do this. So I did agree to start working alongside the psychics, and ended up doing the show at the London Palladium and writing books on psychic subjects and becoming the feature editor of the Journal of Spiritualism.
Wow.
And I was the feature editor for 27 years, and I was commissioned by Bloomsbury to write books for Bloomsbury. I wrote a book called Psychic Pets, which was an international bestseller. And I was sat next to J.K. Rowling. And J.K. Rowling and I were commissioned by Bloomsbury in the same day. And from there, I went to work for Penguin. I wrote 5 books for Penguin, Element Penguin in America. And when I was writing for them, Walt Disney contacted me and said, we're very interested in your work. Would you come on the show? So they flew me to Orlando, and I was on Walt Disney's big show there called Pittsburgh, USA, on the Animal Planet channel. And from there, Fox TV saw me and wanted me on. So I went to New York. And from there, I went to various TV shows around. I did a series of 8 shows for that. And so it's been one thing after another, you know.
And now you're making your videos and you're still writing books. Have you had a period of just relaxation at all?
Can't do it. I'm no good. My son-in-law and my wife and everybody says, stop work. You know, you got to relax sometime. I said, I can't. I like work.
Do you get stressed out if you try and sit still?
I'm no good at that. I don't sit still anyway. If I'm not working, then I'm writing. I write poetry as well, you know. I write poetry as well. I've always been writing poetry, you know. And I, about 10 years ago, I thought, you've got all this poetry, what are you going to do with it? So I thought, I know what I'll do with it. So I hired a theatre and I put myself on as a poet. And I got one of my mates who's a poet as well. And we did the show together. And the BBC heard what I was doing, and the BBC put me on. And I did a lot of BBC stations.
This is the many lives of John Sutton. This is wild.
If you've got the idea to do it, then don't be afraid. Get out there and do it. I've written film. Yep. I wrote films. I directed a film with Lynn Perry. Have you ever heard of Lynn Perry? Who used to be in Coronation Street. She was she played Ivy Tildesley in Coronation Street. She left Coronation Street. She was at a loose end, and somebody said to me, would you do a script for us? We're thinking of doing it. So I wrote a script, and Lynn Perry was a drunk, you know. She drank brandy, a bottle of brandy a day, or maybe more than that. So I thought, well, I've got an idea. At the time, there were all these celebrities were doing keep fit videos. Yeah. So I said, we'll do a keep fit video with Lynn Perry. What? She's a bloody drunk. So I said, it's called the alternative keep fit video. Instead of Lynn Perry keeping fit, she had a bottle of brandy and a load of half naked toy boys. We had her filmed in the bath, and I wrote the script, and this guy's scrubbing her back, you know, and she says to him, I don't mind you washing me back, love, but are you sure that's a loofah? Yeah, it was in all the papers. Yeah.
So, your most recent book, what is the title and where can people find it?
Oh, yeah, it's HMP Manchester Prison Officer, John G. Sutton. It's on Amazon. The audio book's really good as well. It's the same book.
Is it you doing the audio?
No, it's not. I was going to do it, but the publisher said we hire actors to do this. It's far cheaper because they know exactly what they're doing. So, well, I mean, I've never read an audio book, although I do read poetry and all that, but I've never.
It's a feather in your cap that I feel like you need at this point, John.
Feather in my cap, yeah.
You've done everything else at this point. You need to narrate one of your books.
If there's anything else I haven't done, believe me, I intend to fit it in before I'm finished.
And your YouTube channel, where you create your own content talking about the various experiences that you've had, what is the name of that channel and how often do you post?
Getting on YouTube, it's Tales from the Jails, and it's with John G. Sutton, just Tales from the Jails. And I usually put one up every day.
Every day? Oh my goodness.
I try and do one every day. I also got a TikTok channel. But it's comedy, my TikTok channel. It isn't serious.
What's the name of your TikTok channel? I'll find it now.
It's all comedy. It's nothing serious. I'm just ripping the piss out of society.
That's great. Fantastic. So I'll make sure that I put links to all of those things in the episode description.
Very kind of you.
And all that I've got left to say, John, is, oh my goodness, what a wild life you've had. It's like a life born in activism. You have been, as it sounds, like one of very few people who tried to do things the way that they were supposed to be done, and also trying to change things for the better. And I don't know that there are many people out there that did that. So I really admire the work that you've done. And I'm really thankful that we got the opportunity to have this discussion today. Thank you so much,
It's been
John.
very enjoyable. Thank you very much for inviting me. Good luck.
Take care. We'll speak soon. Bye.
Bye.
That is the end of this mini-series titled Tales from the Jails. To find more of John G. Sutton's content, you can find him under the channel Tales from the Jails on YouTube, or follow the links in the episode description. To get in touch with me, you can find me at cultvaultpodcast@gmail.com, or follow me on Twitter and Instagram at cultvaultpod. I'm your speaker Casey, host of the Cult Vault Podcast.
It is Ryan Seacrest here. There was a recent social media trend which consisted of flying on a plane with no music, no movies, no entertainment. But a better trend would be going to ChumbaCasino.com. It's like having a mini social casino in your pocket. Chumba Casino has over 100 online casino-style games, all absolutely free. It's the most fun you can have online and on a plane. So grab your free welcome bonus now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.